All right, guys, we got our official bets and prediction for UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. And guys, this is the early card. If you're in Eastern time, this shit starts at 9 a.m. So, guys, be ready and be well prepped on how you're going to bet on this card right here because this is in Saudi Arabia, if I didn't say that already. So altitude will definitely play a role in this card right here. These dudes will feel different going into the flights, maybe going into the fight, and shoot, even going into the hotels, what they eat. A lot of things play a role going into Saudi Arabia. So guys, keep that in mind. Another thing I would like to say before we get into it, we are 85% done with our official bets or prediction. Obviously, we need to see how the weigh-ins go. We need to see how they look during the weigh-ins. Did they cut a lot of weight? Are they looking sick during the weigh-ins? A lot of things plays a role. The press conference, if there is even is a press conference. So guys, we are 85% done with these special bets and prediction. But I feel confident on what I'm liking right now. All in all, guys, you know the drill. I don't have to tell you to. 5 likes is all I'm asking for. A handful of likes. But road to 500 subscribers. But enough of me talking your heads off. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. We have the main event, Imavov versus Israel Adesanya. Now, if you guys go ahead and look at their last 5 fights, man, Israel Adesanya is 2-5 going into his last 5 fights. So it's not a pretty sight for Israel Adesanya. And I'm not a good mathematician, but he is well under 50% on covering with his last 5 fights. You go ahead and look at Imavov's side of town. He won 4 out of his last 5 fights. Lost to Sean Strickland, but he beat tough dudes like Joaquin Buckley, which was undersized at the middleweight class at the time, I will say. We have Roman Dolidze, which is a tough night out, Jared Cannonier, and Brandon Allen. These dudes are tough nights out. Not the same competition of caliber that Israel Adesanya has faced, though, for sure. But guys, I'm not going to overcomplicate this, and I'm not going to overtalk your head off for this one. I'm going to be betting on Israel Adesanya. I just can't bet against Israel Adesanya. He is on a back-to-back losses. This is the Israel Adesanya that understands he can experiment with a couple of things. He's with Robert Whittaker in the gym, the Reaper Whittaker in the gym. A lot of things are playing out well for Israel Adesanya. I'm looking at the confidence, how he's feeling going into this fight. It screams that Israel Adesanya is going to kind of be back to his old self, but be a better version of himself. You know, he's been at the gym getting bigger, getting stronger. I feel like he's finally filled in within that weight, within those muscles that he's gained. And I believe he will show his full roundness into this fight. Now, I'm not rushing to the window on betting on this fight because Imavov is a tough night out. I mean, you mean to tell me you go ahead and beat a dude like Joaquin Buckley, Roman Dolidze, Jared Cannonier? I don't want no business on betting against you. But I'm going to go ahead and bet on Israel Adesanya. I wish this was more of a pick'em style of odds right here, but I like Israel Adesanya at the odds he's at. I'll take Israel Adesanya winning this fight. Next fight up, we have Bullet Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page, and Michael Venom Page is coming in at a plus 150. If you guys go ahead and look at the last 5 fights, last 4 fights for Bullet Magomedov, he has been cash money if you've been betting on him blindly. A lot of his fights have been going into round 3. With his last fight against Arman Petrosian, did go to the second round with a double spinning back fist, which was a highlight reel that he made, probably to end 2024 if I'm not mistaken. I'm forgetting the time and date. But it was a lucky knockout in my opinion. I think Arman Petrosian was keeping it real competitive with Bullet before he had that great moment. If you guys go ahead and look back at that fight, I didn't think Bullet would have never thrown that spinning back fist if Arman Petrosian didn't do it first. I believe after Arman Petrosian just showed a little bit of a sign that he was going to attempt a spinning back fist, Arman Petrosian just simply beat him to the spot, and that's how he got the knockout. You go ahead and look at Michael Venom Page's side of town. He's fought Kevin Holland into the UFC, and he's fought Ian Gary. Kevin Holland's stock has significantly dropped, so this win right here kind of doesn't mean much in my opinion, but he's fought Ian Gary and kept it real competitive with Ian Gary, and Ian Gary's stocks rise in my opinion. But guys, I will be betting on Michael Venom Page, the more experienced fighter, the fighter that has how many fights logged? 17 fights logged. compared to Sharp Bullet's 4 fights logged. And guys, I don't know if you've seen that street fight of Sharp Bullet fighting some dude. It wasn't really all that threatening. Didn't really have too much thump in those fists. A regular dude off the street could take a punch from Sharp Bullet Magomedov. I believe Michael Venom should be able to take those punches and give enough of those damage back. Heavy money is on Michael Venom page, even though he is the underdog. A lot of people is betting on him, which is kind of crazy. And some people are betting under the round, saying that this is going to be a knockout type of style of fight here. I don't want to be in position on betting over or under the rounds for this fight right here, because there is too much footwork and head movement for me to be like, oh yeah, these dudes are getting knocked out. These dudes have pretty good defense and pretty good offense. I don't want to be on the spot on betting over or under rounds for sure. All in all, guys, I am taking Michael Venom page for the win, and that is the spot that I like for him. We have Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And guys, you guys go ahead and look at the resume for these two dudes. Looking at Sergey Pavlovich first, he has won 3 of his last 5 fights, lost 2 of them on his most recent fights, lost to Tom Aspinall and lost to Alexander Volkov. Both of them were tough losses. Alexander Volkov washed through him, and then he lost by KO TKO in the first round by Tom Aspinall. You guys go ahead and look at the last 5 fights for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Beat Tai Tuivasa, beat Shamil Gaziev, lost to Jotun Almeida, and then he beat Chris Dawkins, and then obviously he lost to Alexander Volkov. But guys, when it comes down to the heavyweight division, I like to go ahead and bet on the underdog a lot of the times, man. And this is going to be a time where I bet on the underdog here, man. Not just because it's like a punch-ems type of style of fight right here. Like anytime, in any moment, somebody can get knocked out. It's not because of that. Trust me, I'm not a stupid bettor, guys. But I'm betting on Jairzinho Rozenstruik because I know this is going to be a new version of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho Rozenstruik has officially committed full time to MMA. He is sleeping at the gym, literally, guys. He is going ahead and he's training night in and night out. He doesn't have to worry about his second job. You know what I'm saying? So this version of Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a dangerous version of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. The only thing that's a little bit scary, the only thing that's keeping me off the fence on betting on this fight is because after I seen the Volkov and Cyril Gane fight, it's clear as day that these judges don't know how to score in the heavyweight fights. So I believe Jairzinho Rozenstruik will win in the fans' eyes. But Sergey Pavlovich will probably find a way to get a robbery sent to his way, and he goes ahead and receive a win. But I just see Sergey Pavlovich not looking good in this fight, and this being a 3-fight losing streak. Gun in my head, I am going with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I like the odds that he's at plus 200. If I had to set the odds, I do think this is a pick'em type style of fight. I believe this is a 50-50 style of fight. Any guy can win. But I will be leaning towards Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I love the odds that he's at right now. I may add this before we go ahead and leave the Jairzinho Rozenstruik thing. You go ahead and think about Jairzinho Rozenstruik's game compared to Sergey Pavlovich's game. I didn't talk about that. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a good Muay Thai fighter. This dude can go ahead and mix in knees, mix in elbows, and mix in punches, and he can kick. He can do it all, and he can do it for 3 rounds straight, and that's what I know for sure he can do. Sergey Pavlovich, we know for sure his gas tank is not the best. He has a lot of muscle he has to walk around with. You know for sure he is boxing heavy. Don't expect kicks to the body. Don't expect kicks to the head, kicks to the legs from Sergey Pavlovich. So those things play a role going into a 3-round bout. So that's why I'm leaning towards Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And then obviously you put Sergey Pavlovich on his back. He is not getting up off his back. Just look at that Volkov fight. And for Sergey Pavlovich to win this fight, I believe the combinations definitely have to play a role. He shouldn't just swing for the fences. It has to be a punch and a kick type of combination, or a punch up top and then one down low. You know what I'm saying? So for those spots and for those reasons alone, I will be taking Jairzinho Rozenstruik because I believe he is the well-rounded fighter. We have Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius de Oliveira. You guys go ahead and look at the last 5 fights for Said. He's been kind of cash money, losing to Jonathan Martinez though, which is a little bit of a stain on his resume. I'm talking about losing to Jonathan Martinez isn't a good look at all. And I was a big fan of Jonathan Martinez, but it took me some time to understand he is a jobber, guys. But you go ahead and look at Vinicius de Oliveira's side of town. He's been cash money. If you've just been betting on him blindly, you go ahead and look at their resume and really get deep into it. This is his second fight into the UFC. He fought Bernardo Sopaj and Ricky Simon, so he is 2-0 into the UFC against Saeed Nurmagomedov, a dude that's been in these UFC spots from the jump. And guys, I just can't bet against Saeed Nurmagomedov. He is not with Team Khabib, I will say. He is friends with Khabib. They're cool with each other, but he is with a whole nother team. So this is not a part of the Team Khabib record, which is a magnificent record of like 100 wins and like less than 5 losses, something crazy like that. So he is not part of that name, and he is not part of that list of the record. So he is his own man going into this fight, and he does not have Khabib on his corner going into this fight. But with that being said, this is going to be a fight of speed versus power, and I'm taking speed, and that is Saeed Nurmagomedov. He is the head and shoulders faster fighter going into this fight. Now, if he does get caught, he's getting fucked up. It's no debating it. It's no debating that. Oliveira has heavy hands for sure. But all in all, I believe the speed will overwhelm Oliveira, and he will take his first loss to Saeed Nurmagomedov. I like Saeed, and I'm thinking about taking over the rounds. I'm not too sure on that yet, but as of right now, I'm taking Saeed. Guys, I actually didn't do any notes for this fight right here. I don't have any notes, and guys, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who any of these fighters are. So I just found out that these guys are here right now, and I'm not gonna act like I'm gonna do some research now and then go ahead and give you guys a prediction that I really don't know. I have to do more research on these dudes, and I have to understand these dudes, guys. This is why my bets and predictions come out a little bit later, but I have to go ahead and put a prediction out. So if it was a gun to my head and this fight happened between Mike Davis and Fares Zaim, go ahead and look at the tail of the tape. Mike Davis is 32 years old going against Fares Zaim, which is 27 years old. The younger guy going into this fight, 6 foot going against 6'1". The reach advantage definitely goes in favor towards Zaim. So he has an advantage there. Go ahead and look at my boy Mike Davis's last 5 fights. Lost in his last 2 fights to Gilbert Burns and Sadiq Youssef. Go ahead and look at Fares Zaim. It's been kind of cash money, but lost his most recent fight to Don Maj. Don't even know who that is. But guys, gun in my head, I'm gonna have to go with the guy that needs this win a little bit more, coming off a back-to-back loss to Sadiq Youssef and Gilbert Burns, and that is Mike Davis. He is at the minus 140 spot. Isn't a spot I love. Have to do more research on their game to see what they really do. I don't know if one's a kickbox or one is wrestle heavy. Don't know these things. But I will be saying Mike Davis wins this fight. But do not listen to my betting prediction for this one. I'm just throwing it out in the air. Alright guys, my dumbass big toe hit the power button, but we're back at it. Next fight up, we have Muhammad Imavov versus Khan Ofli. Now guys, you go ahead and look at their last 5 fights, especially towards Imavov's side of town. He is coming off a loss against Felipe Lima, and it's by round 3 submission. And you go ahead and look at the last fight again for Khan Ofli. It was a tough loss against Maran Santos. So both these dudes are coming off a loss. But there's a little bit more oomph in the resume of Muhammad Imavov. And guys, I like to bet on a dude with the better resume sometimes if I don't know much about the fighter. Now guys, I did do my research on these dudes. And the way this fight should play out is that this fight should be a high-paced fight. This fight should be leaning towards Imavov going ahead and getting a knockout towards the later rounds. So I will be leaning that way. But as of right now, I'm just going to be leaning towards Imavov just simply winning the fight by money line. I have to do more research on his game to really go ahead and be set in stone to go ahead and truly bet on him. But all in all, Maran Santos dominated Khan Ofli in his last fight, and there's not much data to go off of. And he was a plus 205 underdog going into that fight, and he lost badly. So in this fight right here, this is a repeated process of him being at a plus 250 underdog. So I just need to see more. Betting on him will just be a gambling spot. So if you guys want to gamble, bet on him at the plus 250 spot. And that's just not a spot I want to be at. And probably live bet it will be a better spot for you guys, to be honest. Maybe if Khan hopefully is getting his ass dominated for the first 2 rounds. Maybe he can find a way to edge out a lucky knockout win, and you can get it at a plus 10,000 odds, maybe. But this is not a spot I want to be at, guys. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Gun in my head, I'm taking Imavov though. He should be the head and shoulders the better fighter going into this fight. Next fight up, we have Shamil Gaziev versus Thomas Peterson. If you guys go ahead and look at the last five fights for these two dudes, Shamil Gaziev has been pretty solid. Losing to Jahinho Rosenstruck was the only bad look for himself. Losing to a dude with name in the heavyweight division was the only bad spot for him. Other than that, anybody without the name in the heavyweight division, he's been cash money. You go ahead and look at Thomas Peterson's side of town, losing to Jamal Perks, but that's the only loss he's had. Other than that, he's been 4-1 within his last fight. Same way for Shamil Gaziev. You go ahead and look at the odds on where their odds have been set at. Shamil Gaziev being minus 275 winning, minus 170 losing. So he didn't show up. Being plus 120 underdog. He showed up and he showed up in every other fight after that. Go ahead and look at Thomas Peterson's side of town when the odds has been set towards him. He's been used to these underdog spots. Just a slight. Actually, no, I'm lying. I'm blind as hell. Being an underdog in his last fight, he actually cashed out against Muhammad Usman. But other than that, he's been pretty highly favored going into a couple of these fights. Minus 1,000, minus 1,700. So this dude can bang with you now. But the things that I definitely did grasp and watching their fight is Shamil Gaziev likes to put his hands down. He has no footwork and he likes to put his hands down. He kind of has that Bobby Green style of fighting, and I don't like that. I like a fighter with defense, and he just doesn't simply possess that. He would love to make this fight be a stand-up fight. I don't know much about his wrestling game, but if I don't know much about it, that means it's not there. I'm saying that because he is a Russian, and that's something I never put a pass against a Russian, if they're good at wrestling or not. I just haven't seen him doing the octagon at all much. You go ahead and look at Thomas Peterson's side of town. I've seen him do it all. I've seen him work on the ground. I've seen this dude work on the stand-up game. Bet against Shamil Gaziev, it's not a spot I want to be at, but it's a spot that I'm just going to say that I want to lean towards at. We have an experienced fighter in this spot right here. 9 fights logged against Shamil Gaziev, 7 fights logged. Then at the day, Shamil Gaziev is a new guy too in the game. Go ahead and look at Shamil Gaziev. 3 fights logged in the UFC. If you want to count the contender series, I guess 4. You go ahead and look at Thomas Peterson's side of town. He has a good 3 fights logged into the UFC. So the experience are the same. This should be kind of a pick'em style of fight. I'm just going to be leaning towards the underdog Thomas Peterson winning this. And you guys might hate me for saying this, but yeah, I'm leaning that way. Next fight up, we have Terrence McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. You guys go ahead and look at the last 5 fights for these two dudes. It's not been looking pretty at all. 2-3 within the last 5 fights for both these two dudes. Losing to Mark Nikadze on Damir Hadzovic's side of town, which isn't pretty at all. And then losing to Esteban Ribovic, which is a tough night out. I'm not going to lie. Esteban Ribovic, you don't want to play with a dude like that. But you guys go ahead and look at Terrence McKinney. If you've been betting on his fights to end by KO and TKO blindly, whether he's been on the good or bad side of that, you've been cashing and printing out money. Occasional submission happening here and there 3 times only. But other than that, all of his fights have been cashing in by KO and TKO. Go ahead and look at Damir Hadzovic's side of town. His last 2 fights have been going into decision. Lost by submission to Renato Moicano in that fight. In that fight, I believe he just easily gave Renato Moicano a layup. Because there's no way Moicano just... Literally, what Islam did to Moicano did to my boy Hadzovic. Literally. So that's what made it interesting. But in this spot right here, I believe these two dudes are on the same exact level. I believe Renato Moicano could do the same exact thing to Terrence McKinney and beat him the same way that Hadzovic lost. So, guys, I believe this is a perfect style of fight in terms of competition for both these two dudes. I don't think the UFC is just simply giving Terrence McKinney a layup. But I just recently heard news that Terrence McKinney just signed a new contract with the UFC. So him coming off a win is a must for him. He definitely don't want to start off his UFC contract with a loss, so that's something to be on point with. Obviously, altitude. You see how you got to see how that plays a role for him because he recently moved to Miami. So you got to see that move to Miami and Saudi Arabia. How does that play a role? That's definitely gonna be something you have to look at. But all in all, another thing, he's training with Julio Cesar Chavez. If you don't know who Julio Cesar Chavez is, he's not really known as the KO type of boxer. He is a boxer, by the way. He's good at defense, and he knows how to put the pressure on you and try to wear and tear you out. And that's what I believe the Terrence McKinney plan can be going into this fight right here. So guys, I will be betting on this fight going over 1.5 rounds. And I see Terrence McKinney just putting on a masterclass and simply just beating up Hadzovic. I don't see him wanting to go into those later rounds. Not wanting to go into those later rounds. As you guys can see, a lot of his fights have been finishing within the first or the second round. So I believe in the start of 2025, he wants to see something a little bit different, and that's the third round, and that's something he might want to push for. So that's something I'm going to be betting on. Everybody and their mama is betting under the rounds, so I will be fading the public, and hopefully I can just be on the right side of this. I will be betting on Terrence McKinney winning the fight, but my lock of this fight right here is over the rounds. I will be fading the public. Call me crazy, but I love that spot. Man, next fight up, we have Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jasmine Jaduvis. I don't know how to pronounce their name, guys. You know what I'm damn near saying. But all in all, you guys go ahead and look at the resume for these girls right here. Jasmine has won 4 of her last 5 fights, been on an absolute tear. Look at Mayra Bueno Silva. She has won 3 of her last 5 fights. So she's kind of been wishy-washy a little bit because she lost her most recent 2 fights. One by decision to Raquel Pennington, and the other one to by KO to Macy Chassenton. So it's a little bit interesting on how this fight could play out. You go ahead and look at Jasmine. She is grapple heavy. And she will definitely inflict her grappling. There's no debate in that at all. You go ahead and look at Mayra Bueno Silva. She is supposed to be a black belt, but I just don't know. I haven't seen the black belt in her. So that's something to be very worried about. Her in grappling exchanges should be a fighter that's well experienced in those situations, but she just won't show it for some odd ass reason. The future that I see for Mayra Bueno Silva, and I don't want to be disrespectful, is that I see PFL. I see one of these type of fight leagues picking her up, and I see the UFC dropping her. I just don't see her making much noise. She had plenty of spots to make noise, and she just hasn't showed up. She hasn't showed up in Canada against Raquel Pennington. She hasn't showed up in her last recent fight against Macy Chassenton in the US. Now she's moving all the way to altitude in Saudi Arabia, where I think Jasmine can excel. Call me crazy, but I think she can excel. She's won in Canada. She's won in the US. And I believe she's looking for a win in Saudi Arabia. I will be taking Jasmine to win. Even though Mayra Bueno Silva has all the tools to make this a competitive fight and that have this win be towards her side and towards a victory, I just simply can't lean towards her way because I just haven't seen it, guys. I just haven't seen that it factor from her. All right, guys. Next fight up, we have Brogdon Grad versus Lucas Alexander. Now, guys, if you got a name of Brogdon, you're a scary guy. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. But this is going to be a stand-up war for sure. This is going to be a stand-up bang. This is why this card was made, for it to be a stand and bang type of style of card. And this is simply a fight on who do you think is the better stand-up fighter going into this fight. I'm going to go with the longer guy, the guy with more reach, and that's Lucas Alexander. It's simple as that. It's more of the style of fight that you guys like better. Both these two dudes have pretty kind of like similar styles of fights. One is just shorter than the other. All in all, I'm taking Lucas Alexander, the more shredded dude, winning this fight. And heavy money is on Lucas Alexander. Is he the underdog going into this fight? Or is he the favorite? Oh, he is the favorite going into this fight. But this is a pick'em style of fight, however you want to look at it. I will be taking Lucas Alexander in this fight right here. Next fight up, we have Hamdi. I'm not gonna pronounce that versus Jamal Porch. Now, guys, you go ahead and look at this fight for these dudes right here. Hamdi has strong hands. You go ahead, and look at him. He's a fat heavyweight. He can get gassed midway going through a fight, I will say. So if you think this fight is going to go towards the later rounds, this is probably not a spot you want to see Hamdi be in. I will say that. The head movement and the footwork is non-existent for this dude. So he will stand in one spot and he will just bang with you, literally. You go ahead and look at Jamal. He has won 4 of his last 5 fights, losing to Mick Parkin. And losing to Mick Parkin is no joke. Lost to Thomas Peterson, which is fighting today. So these two dudes are fighting today. One over Thomas Peterson. You go ahead and look at the odds for these two dudes. Jamal is coming in as the underdog, slight underdog. This is a pick'em style of fight still, but you go ahead and look at Jamal and look at his game and look at his style of game and see what it is for what it is. He has no footwork and head movement. Same thing as Hamdi. He relies on head movement for defense, but he doesn't have head movement. He loves to head hunt, so he's not gonna invest any shots to the body. That's something you have to be on point with. Isn't a fighter that definitely he is a fighter that definitely wants to look for a finish, so he will force the finish and gets disappointed when he doesn't get the finish. So the way I'm looking at this fight, and the only way I can look at this fight, the way they have this round, the round setup is at 2.5. I am taking under 2.5 rounds. But if you guys go ahead and look at this dude Jamal Porch, he's been all of his fights has been going to the decision. He's been seeing round 3 a lot. Maybe one of the I can see why he's been clamming for a finish. So I can see him finishing this fight. And wanting to look for that. I will be taking Jamal by knockout. And I believe that would be a decent spot, and you'll win some pretty good money at that spot. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Or I'll just take a knockout happening in this fight, because this is going to be a stand and bang fight for sure. And there's no debating that. A heavyweight bout to start off a stand-up card. And you're in Saudi Arabia, you have to take this fight by knockout. There's no way this fight starts off to be a sleeper and just be, this is a knockout, guys. All in all, listen to me, motherfuckers. But this is your boy Fatty MMA, and this is my official bets and predictions for UFC Saudi Arabia. I don't know why I'm getting a little bit fatigued on talking right now. Maybe my sickness is coming through. Don't know. I don't know, guys. You know the joint. I gotta tell you to like the video, subscribe. It's your boy Fatty MMA. 5 likes is all I'm asking for. 500 subscribers, all I'm asking for too. Boy Fatty MMA. And I'm out.